ask Ash a straightforward question, Ash. I asked Famous, and I think his answer is that he would disagree with it. But would you be in favor of the OA sending, 10 million hex or whatever on the first of every month for the next 15 years until it went effectively to zero? Do you think that would be bullish for hex or bearish?
I don't really know the answer to that question. I don't think the OA would ever do that, but I don't know the answer
Also,
of how that would play out. Because if people knew that, they could obviously front run, play games around it, right?
Yeah, but so you don't think as like an onboarding tool, like, look, guys, you all think that he's going to sell this. It's actually getting burned monthly.
Yeah, but wait a
You know,
second. Whoa. We don't have no reason to think he'll ever sell that. It hasn't sold anything for 4 years, so why would you think
No,
he
we
would?
have no reason to think he hasn't. How do you know?
it's a feature, not a bug. I mean,
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, it depends. It depends how you look at it, right? Like we all see it that way, but there's a lot of people who won't get into it at all. They won't touch it.
Well, let me ask you, but that's a no argument. I mean, Satoshi owns a bunch of coins on Bitcoin. Everyone buys Bitcoin, so that doesn't make any sense.
Satoshi's not a good example. We need to use Michael Saylor. Michael Saylor keeps buying Bitcoin nonstop. People cheer him on. Same with the OA buying Hex nonstop. That's all that it is. You want a big superstar who buys all your coins from you? That's the OA. You want Michael Saylor to pump your bags and buy 650 million more, and he says he's going to do million coin. He wants to be Satoshi. He's trying to use the shares that he's selling in his company to become Satoshi. That's bullish.
He's gonna beat Satoshi.
Whether you think he's an idiot or not,
he's gonna beat
doing
Satoshi.
it for free.
Yeah,
and he's doing it for free because he's using fake dollars to do it.
I like that you called that out because I hate when people use the Satoshi. It's like, dude, this is Hex, not Bitcoin. I mean, like, come on, man. Like the Satoshi to Richard Hart comparison it never goes. Like we all say it, but it never goes well. Like when you try to pitch that. But I do like the sale.
I've always thought of it that way. Like I've never thought of it any other way.
Yeah,
and I mean, Bitcoin holders all had a chance to get Hex for free. So
guys,
maybe they just weren't paying attention.
Sorry, I think Hex Crystal is Mike's a bit wrecked.
I'm sorry. I was just waiting to speak. I would just wanted to say, imagine if like a country would want to bring down Hex, they would try to buy as much of them and dump the price or have more action in the market. But no country, no government could ever do that as long as the OA exists. We have a huge safety feature in that sense without having admin keys, and it's awesome.
Yeah, I've thought of it that way too, as a fail-safe mechanism.
Yeah,
just in case someone did attempt to try to manipulate the market.
There's something important you said, though. You said no admin keys. We don't know that for the fact, right? That the OA is like renounced.
Well, we've seen the OA actually do something on the big payday event. Remember?
Of course, it's renounced. What are you talking about? Of course,
the Hex
the
Hex in the OA account.
Yeah,
not the Hex contract. No. The Hex in the OA account.
The Hex contract has no admin key, but the OA.
Right. The OA could just dump Hex right now if he wanted to.
Well,
it could.
You could,
I guess. If whoever owns it, you don't know who owns it.
Yeah, you'd be selling it to himself. That's the funny
but
thing.
Satoshi could also dump, right?
Guys,
Satoshi could also dump in Bitcoin. Anything can dump. Anyone could sell all houses, right?
Can I tell you guys a secret? You could technically know who made the OA wallet. You just gotta find the first one. If you find the first one, well, actually, if you find the first couple of them, right? Because the first ones, well, actually, it's the first. I think it's the first wallet that only matters. But the first wallet of the string, right? The first private key, it tells you where it comes from. Like we all, I don't know if anyone in here knows what I'm talking about. I don't know the terms, but after the OX, we could find out where it comes from, and we could find out.
It's the public key, I guess.
Yeah, not the private, but the first. I don't think it doesn't work for the second, third, and fourth and fifth private key. I think
Yeah.
it only works for the first one. That it tells, like, some of them are so popular that they are derived by certain places, so we could tell who the OA is. Like,
Right,
you
right.
could,
Okay, so
and that's why no one's proven it's Richard, because Richard, you'd be able to prove his miners.
I guess the point I'm trying to make is to what is it, Hexo Christo? He came up with a really good point, and that is, like, the way we look at the OA. It's like a giant safety feature, benevolent wallet, gives us all the APY, like, we love it, right? But on the flip side, other people view it as a risk. Like, that's their interpretation of it, and how, like, where you fall on that line probably determines if you're already in Hex or not, right? Like, if you
Yes, I
look at it
agree.
that way, you're in this room right now, you're with us, right? Like, we're already
But
in. We don't need to convince ourselves of the benefits of it, because we're already in.
you
But
would
it's
have to
more
do
about,
that
like,
with almost any coin, though, because almost every single coin has a centralized amount of coins that are held by only several people. I mean, you can go
Really
look
good.
at almost every coin out there. There's
yeah,
very
but
few that don't have that feature.
80% in, like, one wallet. I mean, I don't know if it's that much. That's highly
Yeah.
centralized, right? I mean, even Satoshi now is down to what, 5%? 1 million out of
Sure.
20, 1 out of 20 is 5%, and it took less than 10 years to get there. So
And how where do you guys
That's how
see?
high the inflation was on Bitcoin. Though. X didn't have that crazy ramp up like Bitcoin did.
Yeah, like what do you think the OA will
correct,
be
yeah.
as a percentage of Hex supply 10, 15 years from now? No one really knows the answer. It depends on how many people stake, right?
No, it's how many people stake is how it gets divided, but it's 3.69%. I mean, the way I look at it is, like, 15-year stake usually, or 10-year stakes usually, like, triple the amount, right? At least that's what, like, the estimates are. But it's kind of hard to tell because the T-share rate and all the other stuff. So I don't really know, but I always think of it as, like, the supply will probably be
There's the max. There's the
yeah,
max number of t-shirts, and that number of t-shirts is going down over time.
right.
This is like all liquid X. If all the liquid X was staked, you could get this many t-shirts, and every single day or two or three, that total max t-shirt that could possibly exist is going down over time. So no matter what happens, everybody's getting cut out if you don't participate in the 36%
So
are getting cut out.
Yeah, just
yeah,
holding
so it's
liquid is actually a dilution. Just holding liquid.
yeah. So it's 3.69 a year, but if you stake longer, it's, like, deferred, right? But you'd also have to count in, like, people who are compounding and stuff. But I think Famous gave an estimate, right? And it was like 50% in what was it, Famous? 50% in, like, 15 years.
Well, see, so what could happen at the 10-year mark is all those people that have stakes past 10 years, the t-shirt rate could be a lot different at that point, right? And so
I mean, you're
if you
right. Like,
have those,
if everybody just restaked it, all of a sudden the OA supply would be still pretty huge because
Well,
they would
you're
burn it all
think
and restake it, and then he's
what
still
you're
got 500 billion liquid. You know, what if
well
everybody just
technically it's
restakes?
technically it's like the cycle is me and Hex is the way we're checking this out, because it's 10 years max out on bonus, right? So the
Right.
calculation only takes into consideration your take of the pot for 10 years. The other 5 years is basically a portion of you getting that halvening every 10 years, because every 10 years is the maximum you get it, but you are able
Yeah.
to get the other half of what that cycle is. So it's fair because you're always able to be in that next 10. Anyways, it's kind of weird to look at mathematically, but when I do the calculations, 3.69 times 15, well, it's almost 15. It's 15.2. It makes 55.35%,
Yeah.
not compounded.
So if there's, like, 600 billion, it would be roughly 900 billion in 15. Roughly, right? That's about 50%, maybe more.
No, we're already in. We're already in. I think it's going to be more
Really? Okay, but even if it's a trillion, that's still 600 or whatever he has,
because
500 billion.
because
It's still
the
half about a trillion.
but there's also the there's the bonuses, right? You have
Yeah.
to always there's the bigger pays better, and it's as if you are getting paid on more than what it is. So it's allowing you to get.
So, Famous, do you
I
think he's
don't.
going to sell it, or what do you think he's
but
I
going to
don't
do with
think.
after
that?
15, but keep in mind after 15 years, like you've been saying, reset, those big
Well,
paydays are now gone, right?
Yeah.
At that 15-year mark.
well, it's not
But
that the
you
big
guys have
payday.
to
It's not the big payday is not gone. The big payday is just the redistribution, because
you
the
realize like
beginning of Hex was
Hex
Well, no, it's not
9.
on the stake
Hex
though. Once the stake's done, like I'm saying, when the stake's over with, those big payday stakes they can only be from the beginning of Hex to the 15-year or past the big payday.
Yeah,
Be
yeah. Pay
everything beyond that, then it's
five
gone. You
five.
can't ever get that one again
Yeah. I get what
unless you
you mean.
restake.
Five
Yeah,
five 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 plus 365.
yeah. So that's gonna be like that's a really
So we
that's
are in a bit
interesting
of
in
a
the long term.
hyperinflation compared to the future, then, right?
Well, it's
I
based
Not
guess
off
I don't.
hyper,
of
maybe not hyper, but more inflationary now than we will be on the second
no,
cycle.
We're
it's not
digesting
it's not
Probably,
real
yeah,
big
inflation.
yeah.
payday.
It's not a realistic inflation. It's a predicted inflation because it's not realistic, right? Because we're inflating it. We haven't even we're not inflating at that rate, right? So it's just the amount of hex because you have to understand 9 point something million Bitcoin was considered to create hex, and that hex that was created was then redistributed from the UTXO to the big payday, right? And from that, that's what's got inflated since. You understand? That's and then from day one, it just inflates itself at that rate. So whatever it was at the beginning, we got to look at how much we're in. So we're 4 years in. We should have this much inflation, and if not, well, then it's not the realistic inflation is probably not occurred. So we're probably less than what we're supposed to be. Therefore, we're not receiving the amounts that we're supposed to. Therefore, we need to stake more to then be maintaining our percentage of 100% staked. It's
Yeah,
actually
I mean,
crazy.
you're always getting even the people that are big are getting diluted unless they
Against
restake
themselves.
longer.
The
Unless they
big
Because
restake
if
people can't
someone,
longer.
even last a year. Come on,
yeah,
these
no, no, no,
big
but
payday
Hex is the
folks
way
are lasting one
yeah, but
year.
Hex is the way we realized, right? We realized before a lot of people said this that we are diluting ourselves if we are not 100% staked. If you are keeping
Correct.
liquid, you are losing against yourself because you could
Yeah.
technically be getting more. So the
Yeah, but you
100,
have the optionality. That's the trade-off. You
yeah,
get the
Isn't
optionality.
yeah.
isn't the main metric the average stake length, right? Like
No, 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 no.
if
It's
you're
because if you have liquid, you're giving up your because every hex that was created inflates itself. But every hex that you own still inflates itself every day. The only way
yeah,
to grasp that inflation that occurs through that hex is to burn it and stake it. But if you keep it liquid, every one of us that has liquid hex, right? We're giving those inflations to the people, right?
right. So
So
Yeah.
in
in order,
relation to
so we are
in
losing against
relation to
ourselves.
other people, if you stake longer than average and more than average,
Exactly.
then you're
Yes.
even if you're staking, you're going to outperform them.
Well,
Yeah, there's a
you don't have to
trade-off
you
no
don't have
matter
to worry
what you
about them.
do, basically in
You
Hex.
have
There's
to
a trade-off.
outpace you have to outpace the biggest person because as long as because it's a mind if your goal is everyone, well, you got to beat the OA. So you just got to beat the
You
OA,
cannot
right?
beat
But
all the guys that locked their T-shares for a lower rate. So even if you 555, you can never beat everybody.
It
yeah, at one
depends
point we
though,
could. What do you mean?
actually.
No,
I
no,
don't
no, no,
know
no.
about that.
Mathematically we could.
2039.
In a time
But
in a long enough time period,
no,
depending on the person's actions.
in hex amount no, but in yield, right, in the amount of how because I see it as hex gives you the opportunity to gain in percentage of supply. So you got to look at the competition always yourself. So yourself, you're losing the opportunity to always be the best of how much you can grasp the opportunity. So as long as you're beating the person who has the most, then you're technically winning on the system. But in order to look at yourself individually, every single Mexican that is not 100% staked is losing against their form where they could be 100% staked because they're losing against
I think
themselves.
That's a good
some the
point.
people who are playing it right are they have maybe a little bit of liquid, which they've just agreed with themselves that fine, I'll take the dilution for the optionality. But again, at these bear market levels, I mean, it doesn't really make sense, right? Because I mean, what are you going to get? You're going to sell your bag for a little bit and then, but at the same time, if the
Well, you
price
should
runs
still do
up,
the
you have
short.
the
I mean,
optionality.
you should do the short, of course. Short staking is your
No,
optionality if you really
I'm
want.
majority
Yeah.
staked. Okay, I'll just tell you, like I'm majority staked, but at the same time, like I understand the trade offs of having liquid versus staked.
Yeah. I
It's
mean,
all
dude,
there's a
if
trade off
Hex,
every single way you go. There's a trade off
yeah,
because you have the optionality for liquid to
if
sell.
Hex ran to $1 this cycle and you had a million Hex and you sold it for $1 million, let's take liquidity and slippage out of it, then obviously if we get another 90% drop, you're going to be in a way better position if you rebuy all that. Now that's craziness because you're
You know
trading and
what
you're
we've
trying to
seen
predict
is
tops and
nobody did
bottoms.
that. No, nobody did that. We would see people with Godwell stacks of hex. Not one person in Hex did it. Not
Yeah,
even the
because you're
God
stuck
whales.
in your
Very
stake.
funny.
If you're
Think about it.
stuck in your
I mean,
stake,
Oh yeah,
man,
If you
you
were a
can't. You
dolphin,
want to
you
take the
should be a
penalty and
whale.
pay everyone?
99% negative. You should be a whale right now if all you did was sell 10% on the top and then buy this dip right now. You
I
should
mean,
not be you should be beyond shark,
Oh,
and
I
And
agree
nobody
with
there's
you guys.
did
also
it. So
I actually agree. I actually agree with Hex is the way because I every day I look between like 50 to 100 wallets
zero,
on this chain to see if I find
zero,
any hexagons that have cash, bro. That forget about their
zero.
hex bag. Like who has money? And I keep seeing the same XF lobby enter, XF lobby exit, and I'll stake.
Let me give you guys my quick like history, because this is, I think you'll find it interesting because I'm relatively new to not only crypto but Hex, and Hex is what got me into crypto. So I have a technical background. Back in 2000, I was in college for computer science back in 2010 through 12, and this guy, he was a colleague of ours and working in a research lab. He comes in, he's like this far out surfer dude, and he starts pitching us Bitcoin. And he's like, "Man, I know you guys are gamers. I know you got these big GPUs." He's like, "Mine Bitcoin with me. It's internet money. We're gonna get rich." And I faded it, dude. I faded it so hard. It sounded like it was just stupid, right? It sounded like a complete scam, digital money. He like opened up the Bitcoin website and like showed me the little Bitcoin and like his number next to it. He's like, look, and I'm like, okay, it's like forum gold, basically. Like, what are you even trying to show me here? Now, this dude did a terrible job. He never even explained I've never even heard the word blockchain until years later, right? So the whole get rich quick thing didn't really go over with me. So anyway, I think about that all the time because Bitcoin was probably, I don't know, $1 or less at that point. Even if I'd given the kid like $100 and just said, "Here, man, give me a wallet with some Bitcoin," you know what I mean? Now I don't feel that bad compared to a buddy of mine who was once offered 1,000 Bitcoin for his World of Warcraft account, and he turned it down for $700 instead. So I don't have.
Jesus Christ.
So I have a little bit of regrets, but not compared to him. So anyway, long story short, earlier it was like January 2023, right? I was actually, surfing the web on some websites, and a Hex ad came up, and it was like 40% APY. And I saw the colors and I saw the 40% APY, and I'm like, what the is this? Click it. Never click links, by the way. So I think I actually typed it in. But yeah, somebody ran like a Hex ad on like 4chan or something. So I go to the website and I start reading it, and I'm like, into I think I read like the entire FAQ section, like 2 o'clock in the morning, like on, on some random night. And so at that point, I'm like, oh my God, dude, this is amazing. Like, this is the best shit ever. So it's weird that like someone pitched me Bitcoin and I was like, no, that sucks. And then the first thing I ever get into is Hex, right? So yeah, so I'm relatively new. Like I got in and I kind of FOMO'd in before the release of Pulsechain because I wanted the copy on both sides, right? So that's so I missed all the sacrifices and all that. But that's kind of
Which wasn't a bad thing.
I mean, I missed all that, which is, some of it's like regretting, but it's like at the same time, it's like you do what you can with the info you have.
At the
So
time.
like, yeah, so like compared to some people who bought at like 40 cents, like I don't think I've ever bought Hex over 3 cents. You know what I mean? Like, so I think I'm doing pretty good in like the grand scheme of things, and I'm still, adding more. So that's kind of my history, and so you got to take what I say with a grain of salt. When sold one Hex, like all I do is pretty much stake and buy at this point. So yeah, that's kind of my history. So like take my ideas and like opinions with that sort of context in mind, right? Like been here for about a year. So yeah.
Yeah, well, that's why I said, like, you got to know your audience, especially because Richard just put that video out, said, we need to promote more, right? If we want number go up, we got to get it out there more. So for sure, we've got to go out and shill.
Yeah. So let me ask you guys this. I'm one of those people who believe that like you can't abandon eHex. Like you just can't do it, dude. I was very disappointed in the Yeats who basically, and then went on the timeline and started posting about it, saying like, okay, I'm moving out of eHex completely and going all in on pHex, and basically just trying to leave eHex for dead. That's like one of those things. Again, it's like it's less about what you care about and what you want to get gains on. It's more about you're going to kill the whole ecosystem if you ruin one chart, right? So like it's hard to get into like Pulsechain or anything Richard Hart related, if it's like, oh, what was his first project? And then you show them a EHEX chart and it's like, holy, this thing is a rug. It's like, it's just down forever. You know what I mean? It's like, you still, it's like, damn, man. So I don't know. I'm one of those people who believes that almost getting EHEX to pump first would probably be the best thing for everybody. And I mean, it's the most slippery anyway, right? Because everybody's already yeeted out of it. And to your point, like when you said you got to get, I believe that too. Like get all these paper handers out. Don't have don't have our coins pump while they're still in. And I think, but dude, come on, I think most of them are out by now, don't you think?
Yeah, I agree with you. I don't think you
No.
want to yeet it. I don't agree with you. You
Yeah.
don't want it to. You don't want to yeet the
Yeah.
EHEX. What you want them to do is to be always paired up against each other, and they're going to push each other up, like 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 liquidity. Hart's law over.
Yeah, I think
And I
2 to
agree
1
with
is.
famous. I agree with famous is that you want to have. Look at China has like a 30 to 50-year economic. That's how far they're looking out. So yeah, that's how you want Hex to be. People to think in Hex. You want to be. The test of time is going to build the stronger structure, basically, which we are. We
Right.
all already understand that.
You just got to get people, you got to get other people to understand it too, right? Like if something doesn't grow, it's by definition it's dying. It's, the population increases and you're staying static, that means you're deflating, right? So if all of crypto,
Yeah, but see,
and,
I
and
would counter with them by saying, look, dude, even if Hex stays the same price for the next 15 years, I will have earned 30% more just simply off of the yield because I'm earning more Hex every day without counterparty risk. That's it. So it's like you've got a counter narrative with that too. That's what actually got my girlfriend with this whole thing. She's like, what if Hex doesn't do anything? I'm like, well, I'll actually have still made
yeah,
solid returns, better returns than if I had put that in some kind of based on
right, but
yield
it
alone. I
probably
mean,
it probably stays the same if you still need some money coming in, right? Like if you don't put more in, people dump it out and then it goes down. So like you say that, but it's like, all right, if it stays at 6 cents, I'm good. And then it goes down to 3 cents. And you're like, all right, well, if it stays at 3 cents, I'm good.
It's a
Scarcity
high.
creates value.
But it's also high. You change someone when you make the money. I promise you, if the haters just listen, like if the haters do Hex and then make money, they're not haters no more. That happens every time. You see it every time. Look at Titan X. Everyone was a hater until they made money. Once they made money, they became a believer, and everyone loves Richard because they made him money. Sorry, he made them money. That's the only reason why they love Richard. They don't understand Richard. They don't think or care about
No,
Richard.
they
But
don't even listen to him. They don't
yeah,
follow what he says. None of
nothing.
it. They could
No.
care less about. The only thing they want is on my price up.
It's price goes up. It's the price of the token. It's we
It's
can have
fly my bags higher, Richard, please. Pathetic.
it's not even explaining. Oh, look at this! You can get T-shares. Oh, look at no one cares about that anymore.
I don't even have any liquid X. Forget liquid X. Liquid X is for noobs.
Hex just became super competitive. Super competitive. You understand?
We used to have 2.4 billion liquid pool X. Now we got 700 million. Eventually, those are going to be able to buy 100 million on a clip.
Yeah, that's why for me it's like why when you could do it? Why would you want to let him take your LP rewards? Why would you want him to take your staking rewards? Why would you want no one to be able to do anything with it? And even the burn to the burn address, it's just proof of inability to do stuff. Anyways, lack of trust.
Yeah, again, scarcity creates value, man.
But it is very scarce. What do you mean? I don't understand. How is it? How
Back
does it
back
make?
to the
But
thought of the OA probably burning 10 to
yeah, but
15,
you're
20%, creating more scarcity,
okay. But burning
raising
in which
value.
sense? Burning in which sense? Burning in which sense? Burning the coins completely, like removing them
Yes,
from
burning them
supply.
completely so that
How do you
people
do
who are
that? How do
worried
you do
about
that?
those coins
How
being
do you do
dropped
that?
on your head aren't.
I
And this is a
understand. How
proof
do you
of
do
that.
that? How do you burn coins? How you explain to me what
Throw
happened?
them to the burn address.
That's not burning the coin. That's just moving it. That doesn't burn the coin, man. That it just why not have it in the OA wallet? Why you trust the coin doing nothing more than in Richard's hands? That makes no sense. You're not even on our team. The way you're thinking
Man,
is not
yeah,
even
yeah,
Hex's.
I
No,
don't
think
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 that you're
about it.
getting the concept
No,
here,
you
actually.
don't. You don't get the concept. Sending the coins to an address. Like if I were to not if I were to go live and just not save the seed address and never see the seed address, isn't that a burn address technically?
The burn wallet is a wallet, where it goes, it can never come back from, as opposed to somebody being
Okay,
able to get them back.
but what does that do? Like, can I understand? Like, it just stops it from going on the
Scarcity.
market.
It's all about scarcity, man. That's what. It
Wrong.
But
proves
it's
that the
not.
OA isn't going to drop on your head.
But what do you mean? What about the guy who has 5 times the liquidity? Well, you
Like,
want
I
him
can't
to?
believe I have to argue this point. I
Yeah,
really
but
can't believe I
you
have to
do.
argue.
You really do have to argue this, because what about the guy that has 5 times the liquidity? Like, what, you're not scared of him? You want him to burn his coins too? Like on Ethereum,
Well, I'm only referring to the OA address burning
Okay,
coins.
so wait. You want the so do you trust the validators on ETH that have 30%? Like, I don't
Do
get it.
you,
We're
Dan?
dealing that I'm only
Dan, it
looking
is.
at it in a
Like,
hex perspective.
like the main
Why didn't
validator.
you become the OA? Why didn't anybody become the OA? You think the OA is a magical address? They just played the game. Why didn't you do it? Don't be jealous for somebody who knows how to play the game.
Why was it the Bitcoin claim? Because technically the
Why don't you
Bitcoin
burn all your hex right now? Let's go. Everybody burn all their hex. What is
it
it
makes
going
no
to do to the
sense.
price? Nothing.
I would, but it's
The
staged.
OA
Yeah, but it needs
owns like
scarcity.
Shit.
90% of the
It's on
Yeah,
supply,
vanity
yeah, yeah. But
metric. It
wait,
doesn't do anything.
0.6% in hex terms, not cash.
If you
Okay,
held
but
Bitcoin
okay, but
from the beginning, you wouldn't want to get rid of it
let's
early.
refer this again.
Come
Crypto
on.
is not cash. There's nothing valuable in crypto. Like, crypto itself is not valuable. It's the ability to get out of crypto. So if right now you value the opportunity of valuing something that outperforms what you're trying to value it in, is probably the stupidest way to invest. So you're saying you're trying to acquire what you're trying to run away from. So it makes no sense. It's like, if you think the whole solution of crypto is to make more money, it's never going to work. When you realize that it's to get away from money, then it works. Like, so then the benevolency, it's like, okay, you send the ad, you burn, right? Burn, first of all, we're not burning it, right? You're just sending it to the dead address. So the dead address becomes the holder of the tokens. It doesn't burn it. So it doesn't change your yield. It doesn't change anything. It just stops the opportunity of that percentage to go back into the system, which, in my opinion, once it gets to a point of when a company gets to that point, if Apple wasn't able to sell its like if you weren't able to acquire a percentage of a business, no one would invest in that business. That's why there's stocks, because people don't want to sell their 1%. But when someone has 40% of the company, at one point when the company gets big enough, it's the most bullish part of it is when he does sell 10% of the shares, right? So like,
Look
when
at
I look at the
Microsoft.
OA, if this is a test of time, right? And if you're speaking egoistically, well, then that's different. That's a different conversation. If we're speaking community wise, and if we're going to speak on behalf of some of the investors in this community, well, then we got to speak neutrally. And neutrally, if in 15 years we're diluting the OA is getting diluted currently as we speak. Literally, like 2% of the OA got diluted in like a couple of months because of what we're doing. So imagine if it maintains at this point, we're diluting it at 50% automatically. But we're probably gonna outpace it, because we are outpacing it in over 15 years of compounding outpacement. We're gonna definitely destroy that, and we're gonna have more. So I think after the first cycle, the idea of the OA doing anything is going to be not even in our heads anymore, because the OA is probably going to be staking 50-70% of its coins, because then the OA becomes a player and it could play and it could sell its coins, because we have a percentage of the supply and the 60-70% of the system is providing 10-20% of the coins. Therefore the OA, it could dump 20-30%, but then it leaves the system completely. Therefore, we can manipulate it and make sure it never comes back. So over time, you could actually get Richard out of the system and get him paid. But if we're not on the same page and you just want the system to grow now, then it's clearly you just want to take from everyone. Because the logical way of looking at it is if we burn the coins, if we send the coins to their burn address, you just give power to those who have it now, which I don't think anyone that's coming up with this idea wants power. They just want money. And it doesn't equate to money. It really doesn't, because the OA every day gets less and less and less and less coins, but the price just keeps going lower and lower and lower and lower. So by logic, by everyone's logic, by how they're thinking, by what the OA should do, we should be getting more and more and more and more bullish, because there's less of the percentage of what you're saying, of a percentage of maybe the OA dumping on us, because he has less and less every day. So it's like, it just doesn't, what the community wants doesn't reflect what is said, right? And then it's the same thing with
the gas fees. We're not going to go on Ethereum because gas fees are too high. Why would you want to do anything on Ethereum? Why? But now everyone's on Ethereum saying why? So it's like, I don't care about what this community says. This community is an idiot. This community is 4 years old. Okay, I've done twice as much as that in this game. So to me, it's useless. It's nothing. Even Richard, nothing of what Richard is and what he does is what it is. His persona, Richard Hart, is beautiful. I am amazed. But who he is, I know you all will be surprised if you have a conversation one on one. It's impossible. He just thinks the way he does because it doesn't sound experienced at all, in my opinion. But it's just me. I'm very rare. But when I look at this community, you can't have Richard dominating everything. You can't have the inventor doing everything because then it becomes a secure. So I don't know. It's like where are we going to go? Because if you're saying to me it's more scarce, it actually doesn't become more scarce. It actually becomes less scarce because you own more. So you realize that by it taking away its
Bro,
percentage,
I
right?
just fully disagree with everything that you've said. It
What
just
are you
sounds like
talking
a whole
about,
bunch
bro?
of
No.
rambling.
You don't understand mathematics, nor do you probably understand business, right? So if there's 40, right, you own 40% of 100, right? So 40 out of 100, and then you take away the 40, and then it's the 60% that rule. If there's 10% when you own 10% out of 100, the guy just owns now 10 out of 60. So you're making it less scarce for people. You're making it less scarce because it's more concentrated and more centralized. So the problems of what you seek of fixing by removing the OA actually becomes worse by doing so, because now you're giving the power to only that much of that percentage of the token holders, and therefore it creates more of a centralization because the percentages are less, because
Especially when
10%.
these Jeets get their hands on it, dude.
No, it just doesn't make sense what he's saying. Huh? If we could burn the supply, which is to stake the coin, it would make it more scarce. Yes, it would make the price go up, but then the rewards wouldn't be that good. The percentage of the rewards wouldn't be that good, and it would be less scarce, right? The rewards would be less scarce, so it would be like, oh, it's actually less valuable, so it's not valuable to stake. So the whole point of Hex, of being a staking protocol or a yield mechanism, is just revoked because everyone just cares about price appreciation.
It's called marketing. These people don't understand marketing. If you have no reason to buy Hex anymore, then will anybody buy Hex? The
No, then you could
reason
just make
is
any
because of
coin.
the OA.
If the
It's
coin,
the OA markets through the APY. It's beautiful. It's
no,
on-chain marketing.
if it's all about scarcity, go buy Bitcoin. It makes no sense. It's like, why would you buy Hex if it's
How's
all
that
about
work out?
scarcity? When the coin inflates itself, it becomes less and less scarce every day. What are you talking about, bro? It makes no point by taking coins that already exist and bringing them to another address and quote unquote in your mind, because people have brainwash you to think that you're actually burning, which you're not doing, and you think it becomes more scarce. It actually doesn't. You're actually focusing more the selling opportunity on those actors that can only sell and provide liquidity, so they can manipulate and centralize your product. Makes no sense what you're saying, man. And if you want to argue on that, we could, but I'm sorry, man. It makes no sense what you're saying by telling me to burn it. If you were telling me to burn it, but then I would argue with you and say, well, you can't stake it all because then there would be no rewards, and then the T shares would get diluted, and then it would become even less scarce because then there's too much of it and then there's less of a rewards. So everything that you're thinking about is not actually good for the system. So it's just not going to help Hex. So burning the coins to a dead address is probably the stupidest thing you could do for Hex.
Ups, down, blacks, white, man, insides out. I mean, I don't get it, right?
It shows you don't get it. I'm sorry. I'm sorry to be mean, but it just shows you don't get it.
First, you have to become the OA of Bitcoin to understand the OA of Hex. So that's what Richard brings to the table that most people don't realize.
It's like the
Hold the
liquid.
crypto for 10 years first and then see what's better, you holding it or giving it away.
You show me how much. You show me how much money the OA can pull out, and I'll tell you, someone with $75 million is richer. So I'm not really scared about the OA, man.
I'm not scared about them either. I'm just wanting to spike, and this is a great way to grab attention.
Not really, man.
Yeah, but I have to
That's
ask
not.
the question, if you guys don't mind. I mean, what you're saying is if you burn hex, well, let's start here. How can you actually create more hex? What's the only way to create more hex?
By staking.
Right. So if you don't have more hex to stake, you can't create more hex.
Well,
So
one
if
no no wait.
more
So
hex is
one
off the
no
market,
no no. You're wrong. You're wrong. I just have to stake one hex and I receive all the inflation. So like this is the beauty of T shares, right? If you had 0.1 T shares and there only existed 0.1 T shares, then you would get that 0.010101 percentage per day on the total supply. So you would receive all of that inflation if you had 0.1 T shares, and if that was the only T share available. So
mm,
if there's less people staking, it just makes it more rewarding to those who are staking.
I
So I
understand
understand
that. I
your.
understand that. But I'm saying
So
if you
removing
have,
the opportunity. So if we remove the opportunity of the coins being used, then it just creates less of opportunity, but it amplifies the opportunity for those who are still in it, right? So hear me out on mathematically on this. Let's take a number out of 100, right? So let's say it has 40 out of 100, right? The rest, which is 60. If you had 10 out of the 100 and you took out 40, now you have 10 out of 60. So now the person who has 10% of what was before just became a bigger user and a bigger threat to everyone. So
understood.
it becomes more centralized with less opportunity of benevolency. And the opportunity of
Okay.
benevolency
If
is the real
1% was
opportunity to
staked,
whale.
if 1% was staked, you'd be at 360% APYs. Do you really trust early hexagons with 360% hex?
Yeah, but it's also a race against the T share, right? Because that's always going to go up.
Yeah, but
So if you
t-shirts,
don't have enough
but no,
hex
no,
to
no,
get
no.
that those
T-shirts don't go up.
shares,
The t-shirt rate only goes
right?
up
But if you
if
don't
you
have enough
burn.
hex to get that extra share after your stake is ending,
If
then you
No, no,
can't
no. Wait,
create more
wait.
hex.
Let's no, no. Let's talk about a random set of possibilities, right? If I were to always be the only, I could stake one hex for 1 year, one
Right.
hex, and never burn a T-share, and never recreate a T-share ever again, and I would receive all the inflation through that whole year. So the first of all,
Yeah, but
T-shares
try to
don't
do that
exist.
in a year from then.
okay,
After
But
that,
so
I understand it.
but
The idea is far fetched. The idea is far fetched. But the idea of nothing being inflated is even more far fetched, because if it's as easy as taking 1 out of 688 billion, and then I get millions of hex per day because I staked one hex, do you understand that the system inflates itself? And also, the inflation
you
only
can,
occurs if the
but
system
famous,
reacts.
you can out earn the T-share rate, and a lot of people don't understand this. But we're at a 9.5% stake. What if we were at a 2% stake? You will earn so much hex that the T-share rate going up, you can outlast it for a very, very, very long time when you're earning 200% or 300% APYs. You'll be able to, right? Like eventually, it's gonna happen.
yeah, but what
This
about the
is
stakes that
There's a
are
happy
longer out?
medium.
What about the stakes that are longer out? I'm not talking about a 1 year. I'm like, what if your largest stake is like the longest one out? I mean,
Yeah,
you're
but now we're not
thinking
in the
in like a
conversation.
year. I'm thinking like five, ten
Yeah,
years.
but it's okay. But I understand that. Now what you need to assume, right, is 3.69 is yearly compound, right? Yes, okay, it's not realistic every year. I understand, but the effect of that is that at 3.69 after the first cycle is an automatic 50% dilution to everyone, because 3.69% times 15 gives you an amount total not compound.
Okay.
So that just shows that in the first cycle, no, even if the OA had 100% of the coins or 99% of the coins, because I understand like with certain effects, like 100% nothing happens, whatever. But if it had like a crazy 99.9%, it would automatically lose because of the fact that it's not 50% stake. Like
Yeah, but you're assuming that those people are just going to dump. They're not going to just turn those
no,
back
not
into
even
to more
the
shares.
dumping only has to do with price, bro. Dumping, I don't care about price. I'm never talking about price. I'm talking about what happens if we burn the coin. If we make the price of Hex so up right now, right? If the
Right.
O8 were to burn its coins, not burn its coins, to send its coins somewhere, and then we become a more centralized liquidity, meaning that we fight against each other, and there is no benevolent actor. Therefore, we're more likely gonna buy it because we become the more we gain in percentage of supply, and it becomes more centralized than us. We gain more of a percentage, right? Now that's just gonna create less rewards for people because we are able to get more of it, therefore monopolizing the system. We have
Right.
more of it. Now the price is going to be in favor of us. So regardless of what happens with the hex that's giving its rewards, we'll make it unattainable for people to get in that inflation grasp. But we have already been in the system that we have a percentage that if that guy takes away 90% of its coins or even reduces its coins over time, it literally increases the bad factors of the system over time. But if we outpace, if someone were to outpace by staking and by grasping the rewards that the OA is willing to give you, because the OA is giving us the rewards. It's not us that's giving us the rewards. Us being at 7.5% is literally we're taking away from us. We're taking more than we're giving as a community. But the OA is giving us more than it's taking. Therefore, it's paying us. So I don't see why it needs to do anything. It doesn't need to sell its coins. So it's saving us from its down pressure. It's saving us from our own centralization, and it's giving us the inflation.
No, I agree. I don't think the OA should have to do anything in
Okay,
terms of
that's what I'm
moving.
arguing. That's what I'm arguing,
Yeah,
and I think that burning the coins is the best thing to do, but not inflating the system, so not reminting the coins.
yeah,
So
but I do
by
see it
doing
as
what
a
it,
fail safe. I do still see it like as a fail safe. Whereas if anything was to go catastrophically wrong, the OA can step in, like what it did on the big payday event.
but I don't think the big payday event still it was its right. Like it's an so what it
Well,
did on the
Well,
okay,
a bunch
so
of
let's
people wanted
let
to
me say
thought that
that.
they were going to get
wait
a
wait
ton of
wait
hex,
yeah
and
I
then
agree.
it stepped in and said, "No,
So
you're
wait,
not."
do you think
So
that it
let's
did
say Hex
more?
goes to $10. Let's say
No,
Hex
but wait,
goes to
Hex,
ten
wait.
dollars.
Let me ask Ash because Ash knows. I really appreciate Ash's knowledge and stuff. So I want to ask him a question. Do you think that the AMM was more of a benevolency than the big payday? Because I think it was more. I think it was more benevolent than we think it was, even if the percentages don't add up.
Just
Because
give
if we
me
look at how
give me a
much
call.
it made, if it recycled its ETH, it was more benevolent than it's staking it. Like the
I'm
staking didn't
sorry, I
help
was
it. It
getting
was
a call for a
a
second there. Can you repeat
oh
what you
yeah
just said?
You're
yeah.
talking AA though, right?
I'm saying because there was three ways to get hex, right? So the OA couldn't capitalize off of the Bitcoin claim, right? Because the rest of
Mhm.
it claimed it.
Right.
So what it did was it took the advantage on the AMM and it took advantage on the big payday. I see the AMM as more of an action that it did to help us than the big payday, because the big payday, first of all, most of the coins that people got were already staked, right? So it
When you're
stopped
saying
you.
AMM, the action that it
Uh,
took, you're talking about when it just moved the coins into the
AA.
sacrifice
no,
address?
the AA,
Adoption amplifier.
the AA. Sorry, my
Oh,
bad. The
sorry.
AA,
Okay.
the AA. So I think the AA was more
Hmm.
benevolent than the big payday because the big payday is the rights of people, right? Everyone was already staked to an extent with the Bitcoin, right? So it
Yeah, the
dicked
big
itself on the Bitcoin because it was stopped until then. So basically, it knew that if you did it that way, right, that you could you it would be worse than you getting it on big payday. So I think it did what it did on the AA because it was gonna do it on it couldn't do what it did on big payday because
the
it
big
didn't have
payday.
the
I thought
opportunity.
I think of it as it was kind of like a carrot that was being dangled to to increase adoption. So a lot of people were doing calculations for many days in advance of that event, saying like, "Oh, I'm gonna look at all this hex I'm gonna get. Oh my god, this is amazing!" And then the day came, and obviously it was a completely different
Yeah, but it
picture.
calculated
But
because
the
it
people who are really thinking about it were saying, "Holy, I need to get all these stakes."